Recorded March 19th, 2026. Good afternoon, Frank. And who is this stranger on the call?
I don't know. Let's investigate.
Let's investigate.
Yeah.
Is that Rod or is it a Rod?
No, it's Flash Dancer.
It's Flash Dancer.
I see future MVP is here as well, by the way.
Is that right?
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've been away. I kind of sort of forgot what this show. What do we do here, by the way?
We this is a show of highly opinionated facts around security and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I've just been traveling so much lately. Was it Experts Live? Spent a week before that celebrating 36th wedding anniversary in Paris. And then, of course, beginning of the year was kind of rough for us because my stepmom passed and everything. So, yeah, I've been away for a little while.
You have been gallivanting, as they call it.
And next week, I'll be gone again, but we don't have a show next week. But Edward and I will be together next week.
I won't be there.
You'll be there in spirit. And to be honest, you might be there next year. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, I will nominate you.
Hey, Edward, you're driving me crazy because like half your face is on the video.
Well, let me fix that. Hold on. There we go. Oh, wrong one. Do that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
They keep upgrading. Yeah, I did that last time, Frank. Now it gives you all these choices that you can. It used to auto do it. I don't.
Auto do. That sounds.
Auto do.
Kind of dirty. Yeah.
So, Franklin, what's new in your world?
Well, I'm trying to think. You know, I'm really deep into GitHub Copilot, and of course, Microsoft Agent Framework, more than Agent Service, which is kind of strange. And I'm actually going to do a security training in a few weeks from now, so I'm excited to get back into that. I see. I got that text from Rod saying, "Hey, do you know anything about this SC500 thing?" That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I had an MVP actually ask me that question because of the AZ500 being retired, and what I don't know, Frank, if you can agree to this or if you know this, but the message that I got was there's actually going to be a beta for SC500 sometime in like June or July.
I have no clue. I'm not dealing with the content development side of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know the content development manager, but yeah, I think people have to realize that it's just when AZ500 was first created, AZ700 did not exist. So there was a lot of content overlap between AZ500 and AZ700. So for the most part, it's really a slimmed down AZ500 with the additional AI content coming in. So
right. I've got a little document here too. I'll have to. No, beta will start in May 2026.
To be honest with you, I'm kind of happy about because I'm actually the one that wrote the objectives for the AI side of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm putting stuff in there that's like preview, and even tools came out after we finished putting together the objectives for SC500. So hopefully this will give it more time to get those tools in, and you know, so it's kind of like, hey, this will be a good start from the AI perspective of it because of. Here's a question for you. This was the debate. Because AZ500 is like really Azure specific.
Yeah.
I was pushing that SC500 should include, but not be like the old MS500, but from an AI perspective, include Microsoft 365.
No. I would say no.
It does not. Well, so here's where I think I'll go with this. Being in the Purview space for the last, year or so, we have Purview MVPs that are constantly asking for what? M365 licenses for their part of their MVP award because that's where Purview works. That's where Purview works, is on those Office files, right? So yeah, I think I would kind of agree with that.
Wait a minute. What was the ask? Should it be included on the test, or should they get? What was the?
Should it be included on the test?
Should the AI section of SC 500 include Microsoft 365
Copilot stuff?
objectives?
Yeah. Securing Copilot or something like
that. Two things can be right. Two things can be right. So perhaps because, there's no secret that M365 E7 is debuting May 1st, right? And so now they're still trying to work out the dynamics of it, is security really a thing that is you're providing the framework and all the things that make agentic AI and models available by virtue of your stuff, and now you're selling this. And let me make sure I say this correctly. I'm opinionated, and I am a gainfully employed Microsoft employee about this, is that you're trying to secure this AI capability, and I'm not talking about the operational piece or the back end piece or the framework piece around Foundry and models, and definitely not defending for AI. I'm talking strictly about the user interface with the channels such as web browser, agents, and such. How you secure that? But to me, I'm maybe because I've been in it, I'm having a hard time finding that delineation between monitoring and true security of the product, right?
Yeah. So
security to me is not only detect. It's the old adage, the circle. What is it? Detect, react, and detain. Whatever that was back in the day. You remember when we first started, right? So I'm like, wait a minute, is it really security if it's only giving readout like the AI security dashboard we showed? I know that MDE is going to have some new capabilities about being able to enforce certain things.
First of all, Edward, let me stop you. SC 500 is more along the lines of setting up your protections or implementing in a secure way, where SC 200 is more about responding to incidents, right?
Okay.
So you'll see like SC 500 has more about setting up Sentinel.
Okay.
Where SC 200 is. So keep that in mind for SC 500.
I get it. You're right. You're trying to come in and create a secure operational landscape for your adoption and use and monitoring and detection of AI. I get it. That's the thing. It's just, it seems like that conversation bleeds together so quickly. Like, is it AI? Is it a play just to modernize? It seems that it's more effort around adoption and use, and then security. Not saying this is security is what you do after you adopt it, right? So setting up is a thing. So when do we have a zero trust framework for AI only? Right?
We're sorry. Okay. We're releasing that at RSA, but.
Okay.
Oops.
Oops. So, AI 300, a new exam coming up. Some of the objectives are around AI security and implementing that. So I haven't seen the content for that. I'm very interested in where that goes. But you didn't answer the question. Should M365, think SharePoint, like fall within inside this?
I think from
the AI perspective.
Edward has argued me out of it.
I would say no.
I agree with Edward now. He made a good case.
Because then you're starting to get into modern work. Because it's a big change getting ready to come with you.
All right, but here I want to say Foundry and other things. What data or what files would they be using?
I get the argument. What's best secures the stuff that's in the operational ecosystem or collaboration ecosystem better than the stuff that you're doing. And so I think you're asking the question, but you're saying, should the MVPs have an M365 E7 license as part of their thing so they can go in and they can test against these things, right? But you got to realize that the landscape is still yet to determine who's the winner. So when what I'm seeing now, that if you go Microsoft AI, probably didn't create something called Microsoft AI. You're basically buying all in. You're buying in soup to nuts, from the interaction channels of whatever your users use to interact with that AI model, to the back end development, to the security, to all of that. So I think there's a huge play that is all or nothing. I think Microsoft, and I'm not, again, once again, this is public knowledge, I'm not saying anything. I think Microsoft is leaning back toward, we're not in the business of securing everybody else's stuff. We can secure our stuff very tightly because we understand the nuances in the background of it. So if you're talking about giving them a free license, yes. If you're talking about, should I have a test question, you are securing your SharePoint online, so-and-so, and you are utilizing the whatever agent. What are the top things you should do to ensure that this thing does? I don't know. That's like saying this. Let me ask the question in a different way. On that security exam, what was the SC 500 again?
SC 500 with the theme of cloud and AI security engineer role.
Where's Purview?
It's not in there.
What's going to happen to the SC?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to the SC 401?
That's not true.
I'm looking at
unless they took it out afterwards.
I've got identity and security and access security, which is obviously Entra and conditional access, identity protection, all that stuff. I've got network and perimeter protection, which is the second bullet point, which is NSGs, Azure Firewall, DDoS protection, all that. Data, compute, and AI model protection, which is number 3. I see nothing about Purview except possibly protection of AI models and inference endpoints.
So let me
which
ask
could
you
be Purview, but
let me throw this question.
No, so there was one specifically call out to before, well, in the meeting that I was involved with, what I wrote, there was definitely a call out to Purview.
So let me tell you,
Edward Holmes.
Throw this on the back of your thing. We're so concerned about the SC 500. You would think this conversation would lead to, when does the SC 100 evolve? Because you need a Microsoft security architect now. You're talking about firewall and this and that and 365 and Purview. So when does the SC 100 grow bigger again? Starts to mature. Or is now that certification becoming obsolete? Because
all right. So you didn't answer my. Let me ask you one question, and I want to talk to you about the AB 100 exam, which talks more about supposedly the architect of the AI architect role, which I have not seen the training for it. I don't know how much I'm 100% on board with that from a technical standpoint. You are the security person responsible for securing an Azure Foundry agent service, which hits SharePoint data, other M365 data. What is your take on that? I mean, don't you need to understand the security model and how to secure that agent accessing the SharePoint data?
Well, I think it goes back to zero trust, right? So
yeah. So the biggest thing is, stop thinking in that way. There are no agents. They are non-biological entities. They are the exact same. I tell folks all the time, if you want to get a clarity in this, stop thinking of them as purely compute. If you're talking about starting companies with one person and growing a staff of thousands and they're all agents, you have to secure the same way you would do that. Every agent has the same threat model as a biological entity, with one major exception. It is faster, and it has the ability to discover and go do things that it should not be looking at. Right? There's no professional conscience to not go look at your executive's pay scale. And then in that route, then all agents should be looked at as insider threat. You're going to have to start doing background checks on agents. You really are going to have to start doing background checks on them. And that,
like who created it, where it's located.
You're going to have to start having agents digitally signed. You're going to have to embed that in there, and that's coming. So you're going to have to start doing background checks on these things and look at, because you could have a person who deployed this and then they turn rogue later on, but you're still downloading the updates to that agent. So now that agent is a double agent, and now it's corrupt. And that corruption came from the person that created the agent. So I tell folks, we start a meeting off, I'm gonna say agent. If I start blending between agent and employee, I'm saying the same thing. Same insider risk, same insider threat, same role creep, same overprivilege, all these things. Except for that the agent works 24/7, 365, does not sleep, does not get tired, keeps doing the same thing. Now,
and if your data is not secure, then somewhere, anywhere in the organization, then that agent's going to have access to it.
And that's easy. Look at agents the same way. You could overprivilege an agent, right? You could accidentally put the agent in the wrong group. The agent could get access to some data that it shouldn't have because it wants to get out and get the report out. So we got some time before people really start to look at this, not as the traditional compete where you put something in, you expect an output. This thing, case in point, when you create agents, you're going to have to license them at Microsoft. That you are going to have to license that agent as though it's an entity. You have to buy, and you don't buy the agent and give it an E7 license. You license that agent. I don't know what the cost, because if that agent is an identity in Entra, you pay for P2, you have to license that agent. You're going to have to get an agent license. That is coming. And that's public domain knowledge. That is going to get you. So, and that goes not because it's some technical requirement. You don't leave $1 on the table. You get the money. And if agents are running companies, think about it. I can reduce my E7 and E5 footprint by reducing the biological dependencies, and then I can just start getting agents to do stuff. And that licensing platform, just like that. And it's something else that's coming that I cannot talk about. When you start seeing external tenants talking to each other, B2B, B2C, watch. So I would say still no, because you make it so broad. Now, if you narrow the scope and said, should 365 agents be part of it, then perhaps. But I don't want to learn how to secure SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams and all that other stuff. I would say if you have an agent and this agent is doing this here, what should you ensure? Now you start looking at privacy. Does this agent violate privacy concerns? Is that agent subject to e-discovery and legal hold now? The agent did something, you need to put that agent in discovery and legal hold. Can an agent be subpoenaed as a witness to an HR violation?
So I would say kind of need to treat the agent like a biological. It needs to go through an interview process. It needs to be
I tell you what,
introduced to the team.
That's a topic for a podcast, and maybe you and I should collaborate on a paper and get it written.
Yeah.
Here's the new world, people. Here's the new world. My agent said something discriminating against me, and I'm going to file an HR complaint.
Maybe I'll create an agent that goes out and interviews for jobs and then hires and then sends me the money. And it works remote. Somebody just thinks it's another employee,
and then the agent,
my agent, making me money.
Agent gets deprecated by a new agent, and it files a complaint against it, and it was discriminated against. I'm telling you, man, the world, all you need is a good red cup. You can come up with all types of scenarios. Agents are coming.
So I think
our guest is here. So let's get our guest on.
All right.
Welcome.
Stop me from you all having fun. No, let me stop you.
Oh no, we were just talking about you, and then you showed up. I don't know how that works out.
Agent,
Oh yeah.
You're going to have agents that are going to need agents. But we'll stay with that topic. Rod, I think we should write a paper on that. And
we should. The whole process from
beginning to end. And we'll
beginning
do it.
to end.
Welcome, Ms. Gittens. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you guys doing?
We having some lively debate around here, and I keep telling folks, agents and humans they're interchangeable.
Have you seen that website to rent? Is it Rent a Human or something like that?
Is it Rent a Human or Rent an Agent?
Yeah.
That's what I want to create.
Human.
Yeah, it's Rent a Human. Yeah.
Agents are just humans without faces, right?
They're just They're just humans without drama.
There's drama.
No, there's drama.
Well,
Yeah.
Miss
Oh,
April,
it is Rent a Human. Rentahuman.ai. You're right.
I'm gonna rent me one. There you go. Well, welcome to the Madhouse, Miss Gittens. How are you?
Hello. I am doing all right. Can't complain. It is unbelievably hot here in Los Angeles, which is not normal, by the way, for this time of year, despite what many people may think. But it's like high 90s, like 98.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's unheard of for this time of the year. So I'm staying inside. I'm staying cool as best as I can, I would say.
People in LA had air conditioning.
In Santa Monica, some people don't. They just open the windows.
Okay.
But they're also like right by the beach, which makes sense. I wouldn't bother probably with AC either. And it's a little cooler down that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely have the air on today.
Well, I would like to go ahead and get you going into the show. So thank you once again. I reached out to you. I know you're like, who is this guy bothering me? I got stuff to do. And I think I made a fairly good pitch to get you on the show. And there is some 6 degrees of separation on why you're here. I think I told it to you, but I kept your secret. I kept you coming on the show a secret from an individual on the show, Frank. And I'm wondering if Frank gets the nuance now. Do you get it now, Frank? Why I invited Ms. Gittens on the show?
No, but I've seen her either on GitHub or on YouTube. It's either the GitHub channel or the Reactor channel, right?
Yep, I've been on both. Yeah.
And so the reason I invited her on months ago, Frank gave me homework, and he told me to go watch your YouTube channel on how to set up MCP server.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That's her, Frank. Look at you. I got a smile out of Frank. I win.
He still hasn't done his homework, but he wins.
Oh no, you haven't done your homework?
I've done my homework. Frank is one of those instructors that even if you get the answer right, show your work. I'm not showing you anything. It's the answer right. Yeah.
You got to show your work.
Really work.
That's how you get extra points.
Yeah, extra point. What you call a doctor that finishes last in his class? Doctor. I'm good. Well, Miss Gittens, I think Rod is familiar with you. You guys sort of worked in the same role of that when I first told him. Hey, I think I know her. I won't do you justice with your intro other than that you are a big wig at Microsoft, so you can go ahead and introduce everybody who you are.
Not a big wig.
Had I conditioned it.
But yes, I am in our developer relations team at Microsoft, celebrating my 7th year this year since I've been with the company. And over the years, the areas in which I've worked has definitely changed. I came in as a program manager responsible for interactive features on the Docs website when we used to call it docs.microsoft.com. And then from there, I migrated over to Cloud Advocacy, which is where I got started with spatial computing. And so working with anything in the mixed reality world with HoloLens, anything AR and VR, I did that for a couple of years and definitely loved it. Industry had other decisions for where the future was heading. And so therefore, I also adapted to the changes as well. And lately, I've been focusing on AI within my role, but my current role at Microsoft, I lead our Python team. But last year, I decided that I wanted to just try to pursue something different. I feel like a lot of my peers, once we've gotten to this over 30 area of our life, we start looking at what's next. And especially with how quickly things are changing and looking at what the job market looks like and so on and so forth. And so for me, I wanted to do something that for the time being seems we would still need some humans to take part in. And I started working more in electronics and hardware. And I found that to be a lot of fun, more fun than I thought. I spent years thinking that I wasn't capable of doing it. And so anytime anyone would ask me something about computers or anything electronics related, I would just say, hardware is not my area, couldn't tell you. And I did my first PC build last January, and it was purely from a place of wanting to have more control over my computer and not having to feel the need to always update to a new Mac every time something like new came out, or I just like felt like my current Mac wasn't sufficient. So I ended up building my own PC, and in doing that, I realized just how approachable PC building actually is. It wasn't this big scary thing like I thought it was going to be, but then that just like opened the floodgates to exploring other things, because I'm like, all right, what else can I do now that I built a whole computer? I'm actually on that computer right now chatting with you all. And from there, I just started getting more into electronics, most recently with robotics. And I would say it's probably been the most fun I've had in a very long time, because to see just a bunch of components and pieces go from nothing to all of a sudden it's something, it's nice, and I really enjoy that. So that's how I split my time these days, with doing some of the AI things within Microsoft, but outside of that, more time with the electronics.
Yeah, great. And I think you shared a little bit of that when you and I had a conversation, and I was convincing you to come on the show.
Yeah.
And we came up with a show title. Unfortunately, it was so long that the show title said shorten it. But what we wanted to talk about was, you were telling me how focused you were on AI and how its integration with robotics, and particularly about, robotics that emulate humans in their task and everything. And we said the title of the show would be, if AI was so smart, why aren't robots doing my dishes?
Yeah, that's a question that a lot of people still wonder. We see, I feel like for the past couple of years, now that AI has really become this big thing, because AI has been around like for a very long time, not just recent, but as we saw AI continue to grow to the point where it is now, there's various opinions on all sides of the AI conversation. But one thing that consistently comes up in the circles that I frequent online is, I just want a robot to do my dishes. Why don't we have a robot doing my chores? Why don't we have a robot doing my laundry yet? Like, why don't we have it doing these things? And I got curious one time too. And I was like, that's a good question. Why is it not doing those things yet? What's the big holdup? And so I spent some time doing some research into it. And I also caught up with where things are currently in the industry from some of the bigger, well-known names as well. And I'm happy to chat with you all about that today too.
Absolutely. It made me think about the things that are on that road to progressing to, I don't know what the end state may be. I mean, the end state that I've seen tend to be not good. Terminator, Odyssey 2001, HAL. Like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So we have these robots in the house, but they
Bionic Man.
Yeah. The $6 million man. You get it right. That's bionics, though. It's cyborgism. We're talking about that's all good. So we have, I don't know if you classify these little things that sweep your floor as robots. They tend to have a mind of their own. They come to work when they feel like it. They don't clean the floor. They give up and they don't go back on the base. I don't.
They go back to their base. Yeah.
I think the things
I will say our robot, who I've named Sharkeisha, she tends to just come on sometimes whenever she wants, and will just start cleaning the floors. And I just let her have at it. I don't know why or what triggers her sometimes.
She feels neglected. She's like,
yeah, I think she wants something to do. And so
that's I'm telling you, that thing will just come on. Like, I know I have it programmed. Is it calling me messy? I don't know. But in the theme of the title, why aren't robots doing our dishes?
Well, the companies that are developing these robots, they need data. And that's a really big piece to the puzzle. There's a lot of innovation that's happening in the way that robots are physically built. But at the end of the day, while those advancements continue, the lack of data to help train these robots to perform these tasks is what's a really big gap right now. And so one thing, there's one of the CEOs of one of the companies. I have my notes here with me as well, because I don't want to misspeak for anyone that has one of these fabulous robot companies. But there is from the company Neo, if you happen to be familiar with that company, they are one of the more well-known robotics brands, I guess if you want to call it. And they say that when it comes to intelligence, in general, intelligence requires diversity and challenge. And so if you're doing the same different task every day that you don't know how to do, that's how you start to become better at something, because it's different things to do. But with robots, you can program them to do the same exact thing every single day. And if there's no other variables to like throw things off, they'll become really good at that one thing. Like if you only ever train a robot to wash dishes in one type of home with one type of setup with one type of dish, over time, they'll actually be able to wash that dish. But if you take that robot and put them in now what you consider to be a more a diverse environment, a different environment, if you will, and now in my home, there's going to be some issues because we have different dishes here. We have a different kitchen setup as well. Our sink is somewhere else. We have different things that we might use to wash dishes. So now we're adding some diversity to the training, but it takes more than just 2 different environments, because I'm sure our kitchen looks different than Frank's kitchen. Frank's kitchen looks different than Rod's kitchen. Rod's kitchen is different than your kitchen. Are you saying no?
It's the same.
It's all the same. Yeah. So where this becomes an issue is how do we give robots access to the diversity of these setups? And if we're just taking just washing dishes as like one of the examples, well, we need to get the robots into people's homes if that's the case, because we can't expect as a company, if we take any of these robotics companies, they're not going to have all these variations of physical environment setups to go train their robots in. It's virtually impossible to do that. So what they do instead, for some companies, they will send the robots home with some of the employees. And that's where they can then start being trained in different environments. Well, if we have a robotics company and let's say maybe 30 of their employees have a robot in their home. Keep in mind, robots are not the cheapest, humanoid robots are not the cheapest things to manufacture, by the way. But let's say they have 30 of them that they've deployed into 30 different homes. Okay, we have a sample size of some data. We can understand some differences in the way things are set up. But that still is not a sufficient sample size of data to help with training the robot. So now what we have happening is that we have companies like Neo, for example, who have the opportunity to purchase these robots. Everyday consumers can purchase the robots. Usually the price tags are like $20,000, for example. So it's not at the point where it's very affordable, but there are people who will bite and say, yeah, I'll go ahead and spend that much on a robot to bring it into my home. So that's how you're able to start gaining a larger pool of environments to help train these robots as well. Well, the other side of it too, in terms of needing this data, is that for some of these environments where it's open to consumers and not necessarily just like the people who work at the robotics companies, not all robots are able to perform autonomously either. And so what we then see in some various demos, if you go look at different companies and their demo reels of what their robots can do, at some point, they may show a robot that's teleoperated, which means the robot's in the physical environment, but there's someone somewhere else that's controlling that robot. And so that is a way to help train the robot for sure. But if you think about it, let's say, Rod, you purchased one of these $20,000 robots. You decided to bring it into your home. You're aware of the phase of where the company is. They want to train.
I'm all in.
You're all in. Exactly. So now they need to train their robots on how to do a task in your home. They need to train the robot on how to separate laundry and start the washing machine and dryer, for example. The robot has never had any visual of that space. So what can sometimes then happen is that these robots will go into this teleoperated mode, which means there's some stranger that now has access to view what's happening in your home as well, because they need to see what's going on in the environment. So then it becomes a question of, do you then feel comfortable having the stranger that you don't know have access to the inside of your home, visually at least, because they're not physically there, but they can see into your home. And some people would be okay with that. And there's nothing wrong with that if people are okay with it. But then there's some that's like, I don't know if I just want this thing in my home that someone can just turn on at any point and just see without, my permission. So then it becomes a point of friction, a gathering of more of that data to train the robots to do the different chores that we want them to do. I'm going to stop right there because I couldn't continue to go on. But
Well, when you and I first talked about the topic, it started my brain to spinning to go, is it so much about, the training of the data, or is the acceptance of, I am given this data to make it better? Because, what started as a minor thing, it blew up a little bit and then it went down. So when you talk about these things like iRobot, the floor sweepers, it was coming to find out that they were uploading data, and they now have floor plans for your house. They also had floor plans, and they did some dissemination of the data that they could tell when you weren't home, because most people would turn these things on when they aren't around because they make a lot of noise and you can't hold your meetings. So if you do a little bit of spoof work, you can tell when people were there. That's just one instance. Then you're talking about things that had no robotic capability, but still was considered evasive when you were finding out their Ring was doing all this stuff. So you start with this data. Then I went to my engineering background and I said, well, you have to have the telework, because I don't know much about robots, but if you're telling me just simple AI needs huge data centers, what would the compute mechanism or requirements be to make this thing self-reliant where you don't have to talk back home? I don't know if we have the technology. We don't have that neural network to say this thing can be totally self-contained. We'll only keep your data about you here. I don't think anybody can make that claim. So you haven't overcome, emotional boundaries and trust boundaries, as well as technology boundaries. But let me ask another question real quick.
Yeah.
We're on the subject of training the data. What does that data backend look like? Because you came from that spatial and visual dynamic space. You probably have to train a different data type, because this thing has to be able to see and go, that's a light, that's a microphone, don't hit microphone, that's bad.
Yes, you have opticals, or like anything visual. You also have sensory data as well. So being able to know, am I putting too much pressure when the robot grabs a glass? Like if it's grabbing some very fine china, you don't want it to grab it with the same force as it would grab a rock, for example. Those are two very different things, objects to grab. And so when the robot is interacting with things in your environment, those are some of the data points that that does get collected, but the robots in turn gets trained on, okay, if object is of, let's say, glass type, then only apply this much pressure when holding. That's a very, very loose way of describing what that logic is. But that's one way to think about it. And then even just visually as well. And it's so funny, I just got into a conversation about this with my husband before I came on here. It's also, if we take the scenario of one use case, why some companies are building robots is in the elder care world, to be able to provide care for our elders, whether that's like a companion at home or someone that can help administer medicine, things of that nature. But one use case is using these robots to help with physical therapy as well. And so from a visual perspective, being able to look at someone, let's say there's an elder that a robot's leading physical therapy for, and if that elder has look in their eyes of, hey, I'm really straining here to do this exercise, or I'm going through something right now that's not safe. I need help. Does a robot know what that looks like? And that's a and that's a very like,
And
could
does
they
it
be
care?
yeah, and does it care? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
And not to mention, if you think of I'll take anyone who's survived a stroke, for example. Sometimes when someone goes through a stroke, you have parts of their body, you have a side of their body that paralyzes.
mhm.
And so if you have someone that does have that paralyzation on one side of their face and they can't visually show that they're in pain, for example, or whatever they're feeling, how can the robot perceive that?
Yeah.
And how do we train a robot to perceive that?
I think the biggest obstacle is really already been overcome, but we take it for granted because we portray these obstacles as something that can be overcome, which is imagination.
Yeah.
Science fiction is science fiction until you figure out how to make money off of it. Then it's science.
Mhm.
Given enough time, if we don't destroy ourselves on this planet, we're going to have warp drives. We're going to have transporters. We got to find a way to get out of our solar system and liquid propulsion and all this stuff. That's not going to happen. We're not going to get out of our solar system. So we have the imagination, and then you add a little bit of greed because everybody wants to dominate the market and all that. So we'll get there. But would you? And another reason I want you on the show is because Rod had expressed to me in one of our conversations that he's starting to get a particular interest in how AI and prosthetics. So I would think one of the training models would be those who are now, I think Elon's putting things in your net and make your hands move, and training from different places. Like this person has a prosthetic, and this prosthetic has to emulate. Can I move it that much? Right? Is that one of the training mechanisms that people are exploring by looking at AI and robotics and that for prosthetic?
I haven't looked into that area too much, but I could also definitely see it being used in that way. It's funny you mentioned Elon. I was looking into some of the work that he has going on right now with Optimus. And if you take a company like Tesla, for example, and a lot of the work that they're doing to make all the components that it takes to bring even just like a robotic hand, for example, if we use a hand as an example, to make it so that it's more like human hands move, that's already happening. That there are companies that are already starting to crack the code on that. It's not perfect, but the more that technology improves, the more that things get smaller, the more that just in general, anything hardware related continues to improve, you're going to be able to see those advancements and those use cases as well. And when I was looking into this not too long ago, if we take Tesla, for example, they're doing a lot right now with plans around bringing consumer robots to the market. And so I had read that the human hand, if you take the human hand, someone had like a prosthetic human hand and like arm, for example. The human hand itself has 27 degrees of freedom, and it has very complex sensory feedback, precise control, and that is considered like the gold standard for manipulation. Well, someone like Elon is currently claiming that the new hands that he has for like his robots, for example, for one, they're similar to a human proportion of hands. And then, which in itself, it solves a big manipulation problem that we've seen in the past with robots. And in addition to that, we're seeing advancements happening around with like actuators as well, and then the sensory feedback. So all these things that are currently happening, because he starts production, it's supposed to be mid-month this month, so he's probably already started on that. Those things are happening, and it can be applied to other areas such as prosthetics. I know I used hands as an example, but when we start getting into things like legs as well, or any limbs in general, we can see it being used in those areas. But the fact of the matter is the technology is there and it's improving, and it's only going to get better. Go ahead, Rod.
Well, we just talked about earlier the data, which obviously for AI and also robotics, data is going to be the most critical thing. These things that are happening now, you say that are available, which I'm actually super excited about. I've been waiting for C3PO my whole life. Is this data that they are collecting, these things based on this research, are they sharing those, or is it siloed by corporation because they want to make money off being the best at that thing?
Yeah, so from what I'm understanding, for some of like the larger names that like Unitree, I know I mentioned Neo earlier, Tesla, for example, Figure as well, it's proprietary data. But you do have some people that are doing robotics more in the open source world, and their data may be more readily available for folks. But for these like real big Silicon Valley type of companies, they're keeping their data to themselves because
See, that's why I
they
feel
want to
like
be competitive.
we don't advance quick enough, because it's all based on intellectual IP and all that
Well,
stuff.
Yeah.
Corporate IP, I mean.
if you take, Frank, you had a question?
I got 2 questions when
Go
you're
ahead.
ready.
Go ahead.
So my first question is, it seems like there's not enough materials to give everybody a robot. I mean,
Yeah.
what are these things made of? And what, are we going to get, even when we look at the world of LLMs and GPUs, are we going to start saying, okay, only the aging population can have robots because they need it? I mean, do you see a material squeeze that will change the direction of the development of robotics because they can't put stuff out there?
Yeah, for me personally, I think what probably will happen is we may come to a point where there may be a material shortage. And I think if that does happen, you'll start seeing companies find alternative materials to create robots. And while it might not be a perfect one-to-one match on whatever the typical usual materials are that they use, I think it'll probably be relatively comparable to the point where the robot can still function and do whatever the task is at hand. But I don't know how close we are to that point where there's not enough resources to build robots. But
Yeah.
on the other side, and thinking about that, if we're also just being realistic, for the estimate price point of what we're looking at for robots, even the ones that are currently on the market, like $20,000 is already a lot. And so to get to a point where if they even came in less expensive than that, I think by the time we reach that point, we will have found alternative solutions in terms of materials to build the robots, because that's also what's going to bring the price down too as well. And so I think while it might be a concern at some point, I think just given where the price point is right now for the robots, it's not going to be something that'll happen like tomorrow, I would say, because we're just not going to see mass adoption happen very quickly. I mean, even when the pandemic came around, for example, in 2020, internet access was still a problem. And that's internet access, you don't hold internet access. And people still didn't have that, whether it was just due to where they were located or they couldn't afford it. And so if we think about even like what we pay on a monthly basis for internet, which is significantly cheaper than a robot. So if we still haven't gotten to a point where even that's adopted by everybody, I think we're definitely some ways away where everyone's going to be ready to drop $20,000 on a robot as well. Mine is still like people who can happily, afford one and invest in one.
Yeah, like Edward. So now the next question is this. What I always hear about full self-driving vehicles,
Yeah.
all that stuff, is the issue with them is that they're trying to drive on roads that were made for humans to be driving.
Yeah.
And it seems like right now on a lot of robotics, we're trying to do things about hands and this, whatever, just because everything's set up to be done by a human. Do you see us switching over to saying, okay, now these roads or the way that we do dishes, the way that we do whatever is more aligned for what's easier for a robot to do than what a human's doing?
I'm ready.
You stole my question, but you stole my comment. But yeah,
I think that we may see some companies who will try to change the status quo in those areas, but I think that's also where we'll start to be met with pushback for adoption. Because if I was just told that in America, we're switching to a new way of getting from point A to B when we're out driving. And like, if like roads are no longer the same, that's a really big adjustment, depending on what it is. You know, it also depends on like how big of an adjustment that is. But I think in the short term, it would be a really big friction point. But I think in the long term, like most innovations, we as a people, as meaning humans, would also probably get over it at some point, and
I mean,
we would
I,
adapt to it. But
I'd be
I
happy.
think,
I'd be
go ahead.
happy to get a different dishwasher if it
Yeah.
makes the life easier for the robot to do the dishes. You know.
Yeah, I would say, and I think, and to your point, I think it depends on what we change to adapt to how robots function. If the entire world had to undergo a really big revamp of how we do stuff, I think that's a harder sell. But I think if it's certain things like dishwashers, for example, if we had to change the way that we set up our sinks, that might be an easier thing to encourage people to move forward with doing. But if you also then tell me, if you want to have a robot, you can only use these type of dishes, then that becomes a problem for people like me, because I'm all about aesthetics in my kitchen. So if what you're telling me I have to purchase
Steel plates.
Oh yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, keep in mind, when I designed our kitchen, everything looks very industrial, and I love it. It's a very nice mixture of wood and metals in there. And because my husband loved to cook, so I designed it with a very masculine look in there. So steel plates would probably go well in our kitchen, but I personally wouldn't like it, and I couldn't put it in the microwave either.
Well,
So
But
here's
yeah.
one thing I think. One thing I think, and I've had this thought a lot. So I'm all in. And Edward and I had talked about this several times. I'm all in with robots. I want my robot now. However, my family knows this. My wife, she's cool with it. But my 17-year-old daughter, and this is where I think the adoption point is going to be. It's going to be kind of a sticking point, and I'd be interested in hearing what you've heard on this.
Mhm.
My 17-year-old daughter and her generation, they are so anti-AI.
Yeah,
They
they
are
are.
so anti-technology, and I'm just like, how's this going to work if we're adopting this stuff? What are they going to do when they come up and they're faced with this?
Yeah, I've also have heard that. Now, granted, 17 is definitely half my age, but I have heard as well. I have heard that their generation is very just like tech adverse, I guess,
Yeah,
if you can call it.
trying to
They're
get rid
really
of
not.
phones and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such an interesting phenomenon, if you will. But I think that's where we're going to start to see a bit of a divide in terms of, you'll have some people who adopt and some people who won't. But then when the people who's developing this technology starts to age out of the workforce as well, then it becomes, well, who picks up the work if so much of that generation is like really against it?
well,
And do we go ahead? Yeah.
no, go ahead. I have a thought. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then do we just kind of just leave it hanging there and no one does it? But we saw that same thing in a sense, not exactly, happen with VR.
Yeah.
Years ago, before I was born, VR was having a little bit of a moment. And then when we started getting into, I want to say, mid 90s or so, up until probably before the pandemic, not too far before 2020 happened, there was a little bit of a dormancy in the area, but people were still working in that space. People were still making advancements in that space. And then it came to a thing where metaverse became this bigger thing and all that. And I bring that up to say, if we see this point where we have all this innovation in robotics and technology now, and then our respective generations, we leave the workforce, we're no longer building and innovating. We now have this generation of folks who are just like very anti-technological innovation in a sense. We'll still have some people who are still interested in working in that area, just like what we saw with VR. And then hopefully at some point we will see a submergence of people who really decide to adopt the technology and keep the hope alive, hopefully. But that's how I see it happening. But also at the same time, when I look at, and I call them kids because they're definitely kids, the ones that are like in high school and younger, and the ones that are participating in these different like STEM-based competitions where they're building like the most wildest things at their very young, intelligent age. Part of me then feels like, okay, we're probably a little safe in terms of like keeping the hope alive of continuing to innovate, because it seems like, I don't know if it's just me because I didn't come from a tech background before I got into space, but it seems like they're getting younger each year in terms of like who's capable of building what. Yeah. And I think the more that they continue to come up, that like subsection of children and young adults, I think that's what's going to help continue to help push the envelope on what we have in society as we continue to evolve when we think about tech.
One of the big things that when I look at this whole podcast can be framed up in a couple of ways. There's 3 comments. You talk about the children. Since you mentioned your age, I'll tell you that my kids are older than you.
Okay.
My oldest son's older than you. I think you're probably the same age as my youngest boy. And they came up probably in the age, they were still born into the technology, right? Rod is probably the oldest on the call, and then I think I'm older than you, Frank, and then you're last, right? So, but we were not necessarily born into what this current technology wave is, right? Whatever, just whatever we call it. If you look behind us, it was the industrial age. I don't know what this age is. It seems to be that the summarization of where we're going presents 2 problems. I'll be 58 here. You know, look, I get 30 more years. If we have exponential growth in technology and advancement, which I don't think, and I'll tell you why, then perhaps we'll see some of these innovations before I move on to the next assignment, right? But it looks like science fiction is the precursor and the predictor of what we are trying to aspire to, and it's out there. If you really want to see a good show, I don't know if you're into monster and science fiction, go watch Aliens Earth.
Okay.
And then you'll see why corporations, what Rod said, are the silos of this information, because they end up being like 4 or 5 major corps they own. And artificial intelligence and robotics was a mainstay of this. And that Aliens thing on Hulu or whatever was really built on aliens. They talk about what we're talking about now. How do we advance this? And the major contributor, or the major drawback was we don't live long enough. And so you're seeing that we have to pass this on, and very few innovators can think about our small, minute lifespan. We don't live long.
Yeah.
How much different what we operated? We live to be 500 years old, right? Or 1,000 years old. We treat the environment different. We discover new materials. We raise our young different. Those things. So there's some creatures in the movie, but go watch Alien Earth and see how these corps own all of this technology, and they are highly focused on artificial intelligence, robotics, cyber organisms. Second thing, you're talking about materials. We haven't had a good material engineering race in a while, because we need to do 3 things. You need to solve a problem. You make a lot of money, or you need to have military dominance. Yeah. I think the military dominance, we're starting to see the drones. We're not going to fight these wars anymore. We're going to put button there. I'm wondering, will the industry shift, and we're going to put robotics outside of the house first, manual labor, because our climate is changing. It's hot out. Manual labor to do certain things as pick fruit and pick vegetables and manual labor. So I think that the robotics and robots that we're talking about is a class state indication. Can you afford it? Is it cute? You're going to buy houses that come with a robot, and the house is built around a robot. And the house has already been pre-learned. It knows how to run a dishwasher. It knows how to do this. You have your steel plates and all this stuff. Unfortunately, I'm a realist. I don't think in my lifetime this is going to happen.
No, and I don't think so either. as well, like to like that exact example. I don't think we will see it unless someone figures out how to preserve humans or stop the aging process significantly.
That's coming.
And
Oh,
that's the thing, it's coming. So yeah, I don't think we'll have the luxury of being able to see it, but I can also see a world where that is what becomes the future. But there's one thing you did bring up that I did want to chat about a little bit more, is outside of the consumer space, more so from the industrial side or just the human labor side of things. One thing I've found very interesting in searching more about the way the various CEOs of these more well-known robot brands talk about what their end goal is and what their like initial like goal and reasoning is, and what is it that they're trying to resolve. The first thing that most say is that they're trying to resolve for the labor shortage. And I haven't had a chance to dig in deeper in terms of, well, what do you mean there's a labor shortage? And, for things like, if we take Elon, for example, the rollout that he has over, I think it's like a 3-year plan for his next version of Optimus. There's a new, I don't know if you want to call it initiative or project that he's working on, but he announced it recently on the 11th, and it's called Digital Optimus, but it's also called Macro Hard, which I find to be funny in terms of the naming. But what he's done or plans to do is Optimus itself, which is the physical robot, that will exist, but it will also coexist with a digital Optimus. So the AI version that's based on Grok. Yeah. The AI version, the digital Optimus, does the administrative work. Most things that you see people when they say they're building with AI these days, all those different tasks you can do on the computer, sending emails, consolidating expenses, like all reconciling expenses, all those things like that. That's what the digital Optimus does. But the actual physical Optimus is the one that does all the actual in-person physical work itself, whether it's working in the factory, for example, or if it's actually like picking products for a pick list because they're shipping something out if you like happen to have like a warehouse. And Elon sees this technology growing to a point where these two are able to work so well together that we can take humans out the equation entirely in terms of these sort of roles that have this digital and physical component to it. So when you talk about the people who are picking like fruit, for example, off trees, I can see a world where someone like an Elon wants to have the robots go do those things because there's this labor shortage. And therefore, what happens to those people who used to do that for a living? And so as I looked into that a bit more in terms of like, how are the CEOs thinking about that? That leads to the second half of what their goal is, which is to let humans or enable humans to have more time to enjoy the things that they want to do. So when I hear that, I'm like, okay, but if you just displace them out of a job, how do they have the money to go do the things they love to do?
Well, and as humans, we are driven by accomplishment. You can't take that away from a human will die. We'll die off.
You're being very generous about the human condition. I think we're probably, I don't want to offend any of our faith people. We're probably one of the worst inventions ever made. We're self-destructive, we're violent creatures, right? We're like a virus, just like they said. We keep consuming. And I'm probably one of the biggest offenders, right? But
I got a question for you.
Good.
Is our future more like Terminator or more like WALL-E?
I think it's more like WALL-E, honestly, with a little bit of Terminator.
Yeah, I think it's a good blend. Because I do believe that the military industrial will drive it. It's
always does.
Things that galvanize nations and corporations is war, or when the world really believes there's an existential threat to destroy all of us that none of us can control, aka COVID, right? And even COVID was hard pressed until everybody in the world realized we're going to bite the bullet here. This virus is indiscriminate. I'm good. It doesn't matter. I will get you. There were some social economic displacers where we had therapeutics that could help it, but that's a sore subject because you're still going to look at a place in the world, not just the United States, that are looking at how can I make a buck, and how do I get military dominance or perceived, or how do I solve a problem that allows me to achieve the first two? There's no need of ruling the world. There's nobody here, right?
Yeah.
And the big brain CEOs that really think about this, I applaud them because it's very hard to think about how the company goes when you passed on, right? And we hear stuff like legacy and all that. And there's 6 feet of dirt on top of me. What legacy? We'll see. I am so interested in. I wish this could happen if I had a wish list. If we could come, I don't know what we is, but you have a consortium with, hey, we need to do this. And we don't have a common criteria. Now, if we thought that, like once again, you go back to science fiction, that seems to be the thing because that X variable is.
That's where all our ideas come from.
Yeah. What would we do if you ever watched a thing on Netflix or Prime called The Third Body Problem, when you knew that the way that we live on this planet was not going to be possible in 10 years? 10 years, this planet is going to be uninhabitable in the way that we do. What would we do? Do we leave or do we find a way to stay here? Leaving is the problem.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a mix of two different things. This was this really good show on Apple with I have to look it up, but what I would think, this is what I think would happen if something like that did happen in reality. I think we would have half the people trying to find, well, where else could we live? And then if they figure that out, they would charge quite a pretty penny to make that happen. So you would have a lot of people who would unfortunately be left here to figure out what's next.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that group of people, or even the ones that technically could afford, but actually care about the rest of humanity, they would work to figure out what can we do to stay here. I think we would be split for sure. Just the same way we were as a world was split in how we could overcome COVID. I think the same thing would happen in terms of if we were told we have X amount of time left on this earth. I think some would try to go and overcharge, and I think the other half would try to figure out what can we do to resolve.
We would just leave. We would just leave the Amish here.
Is that Apple movie? Was it called Don't Look Up or something like that?
That was one. There's a show that Billy Crudup was in on Apple that was really good. I'm looking it up right now, but I bring that up because I think what would happen is it's called Hello Tomorrow.
Yes.
I think what would happen is what his company did, which is they were selling fake places to live on the moon, was it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you would have some people who would start to deceive the general public that we figured it out, and for X amount of dollars you can take this ride on my rocket ship, and oh look, you can buy property in advance too, so that way your future is secured when you get there, only to realize, like in the show, sorry for spoilers if anyone's watching it, but it wasn't real.
Even in science fiction, there's reality because our explanation of space is now being drawn back from Mars to the moon because it's going to be seen as a military advantage. Mm-hmm. You can hit any target from that orbiting body, right? And the moon doesn't rotate. One side is always perpetually dark, so you don't have to worry about that spatial dynamics and being able to target because you always going to have a dark side and a permanent facing side always going. So the military dominance and lack of resources and things like that are going to drive it. So to bring it all back, we are the Security AI Show. We've discussed all of this. So how does this relate to cybersecurity, technology security? It's because you're always going to find a negative actor that's going to be able to try to break the thing, to try to circumvent the thing. Someone that's going to go into a room and press kill on the button and all the robots go, I'm tired of doing dishes. I'm going to rise up. I'm tired of doing dishes.
That's why you have kids until you have robots. So that's why you have kids. Do those dishes.
Joke, make sure my wife not
So,
listening.
I got a question for our listeners out there. If they want to get started learning about robotics,
Yeah.
what resources would
Oh,
you
yeah.
tell them to go look at?
Yeah, I'm actually exploring that myself right now. So there's two paths I would take. There's the physical aspect of actually building, and then there's the theory as well. From a physical aspect, I would say getting started with electronics. There are a wealth of videos on YouTube to just get started with understanding what different components are, how circuits work, how to use different motors, and that's all free. I mean, it's available now, and you can literally Google how to get started with whether it's robotics or electronics, and someone has made a video. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, I would say, still from the physical aspect of it, is to build something as well. And I don't mean starting from like scratch. You can. I think it requires a certain level of patience because you don't know what you don't know. But when I decided I wanted to do more with robotics, I actually just bought a couple of different robotics kits that were already full of components. And so like recently I built like a robot dog. And from that one project, I learned a lot about how things come together to move. And then there's also the programming aspect of it too. Now, from a theory perspective, I've been looking for different like courses online to take. I did find that Udacity actually has a really good amount of courses around robotics, but many other programs I found are actually based in like university curriculums. So that would require enrolling in school somewhere. And a lot of the programs are actually at the master's level, which means you got to have your bachelor's first. Yeah. And it's not just any bachelor's, you got to have a bachelor's that complements going into that area. So for me, since my bachelor's was not in engineering at all, I'm starting on my own side. I'm starting more on something like Udacity because it's way more affordable. I can't leave throughout the day to go sit in a course at USC, for example. So something like that, I would recommend if you don't have the physical time to go and re-enroll in like a formal program somewhere. But this information, it's available online. There's nothing wrong with enrolling in a program somewhere. If you can definitely do it, definitely by all means. But I would say don't let that be a barrier to entry if you want to get started. But physically building from an established like robot kit, and it doesn't have to be like a $1,200 like robot kit. Like my robot dog, I think when I bought that kit, when I looked it up recently, I think that one's at like $179, I would say, and they come cheaper. There's even like cheaper, more less complex robot sets that you can build, but they can also get pricey as well. So building something, it opens your eyes to see how things actually come together. And now that like I've done my own robot, I'm exploring now different features in it to learn more about, well, how can I do this on my own? And I think if you have that curiosity, that would be the third thing I would say you need in terms of getting started, because that curiosity is what's going to drive you to continue to learn more and start to get a little deeper into that area. So very long-winded way to answer your question, Frank, but that's what I would recommend.
You said, being professionals and being able to do this, I mean, you can go to USC. If you play football, you don't have to go to class.
Yes, that
shade
is true.
on USC. Shade. I'm doing that.
I think the important thing is that getting your hands on and doing it, is key, and learning that way learn by doing is very important.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very important.
Somebody showed a robot that was like 10 grand, but you can get a payment plan for $148 a month.
It was $397 a month. There was two different payment plans.
I thought that robot. Maybe I get me one.
It's on Amazon. I'll send it to you. I was looking that up because April mentioned the Neo earlier. That's like the top one. The second one, which is actually the best value, the one that I'm actually most interested in, is the Unitree G1. But you have to order it from China. So,
well, yeah, they I've seen different influencers get one somehow,
Yeah.
and they have it in their. I've seen them do content with it. So
Yeah.
all you guys have to do is just mention the show, and maybe they'll send you one.
Well, we get impact about 6,000 folks a week who want to go back and click the link and do all this other stuff. We had that organic reach.
Who knows? We could replace Frank in at once he
Oh
becomes
no,
an
don't
MVP.
replace Frank.
Yeah. You know, then our robot would have to go on a cruise ship every month, but I'll leave that. I'm not going to go by that.
Saltwater's not good for a humanoid fight yet.
So, you know, this topic is one of those topics that people get paid tens of thousands of dollars to go speak at these Davios, right? You can go out there and go do that. It is very much big brain thinking, but every day seems to bring us from aspirational to material because people are figuring out how to make money on this, right? I'll tell you one thing that I think is going to happen. And in 20 years, if I'm still kicking around here, the thought of having autonomous cars drive you seems to be, you know, it's still evolving. I saw a couple of here in Atlanta. One scared the dickens out of me. I was crossing the street by Georgia Tech. But it's always class, state, perception, and rank. You're going to probably see a time where you're going to have a robot drive your car. That's going to be the new class state. You know, because it freaks people out to have nobody in that front seat. That is a generational thing. You got to
out.
But if you put a robot, even if it's just, I remember they caught some guy here in Atlanta. He kept driving in the HOV lane because he had a blow up doll. Genius, you know. But traffic and the cop looked over and like, it was on WSB. I laughed. I thought about doing that myself.
What was the cost of that ticket?
$200 maybe. But you're going to start seeing, I believe, that Elon, if you listen and call me, you're going to start seeing cars. Here's how we market it. If you're concerned about your data and your driving habits going up to the big bad cloud, we will give you a robot to drive your car, and all the driving instructions are localized to that and not that. And so now that car knows how to drive you, and you don't have to worry about your data, where you're going and everything, because that is your data repository, and the thing can do it. All you have to do is make someone think that they are better than someone else by having a robot in a driverless car. That's it. Because I've seen people auction off their kids to get a Cybertruck. 20 years ago, if you drove that thing, you got no play. You know, like, what are you driving? Are you poor? You know what I'm saying, right? Now it's a state class thing, right? To be able to do that. I think that of all the things that we've talked about, I am hyper interested in what that data model looks like. Because you're talking about optics, sensory. I mean, the human body, for how it was created, you know, I'm shifting. I can tell my wife turn the AC on upstairs. I can see it. I do it now. Like, she must be hot. She turned the AC on. And then now I want to go back, and a lot of the innovation comes from folks who want to do bad things with the technology. I really want the robot to blow up the house, not necessarily harm someone, but blow up the house, right? Or
if it's a balloon house,
there you go, right? And golly, it's just so much potential in what's going on. But the thing that intrigues me most is that if you got people who are putting money into this, they do believe there's a payout. It may be that we're going to figure out a way to download your brain waves and everything and put it somewhere. And then when these things are ready, we're going to upload you into it. People are paying money for that. But I do believe biological body hacking is going to occur before that. GPLE1s for weight loss that became as a side product, that is going to they're going to find a way to use that to extend your life. It's coming. Right?
Yeah, I can see that.
And it's going to give you 10 years. It's going to give you 10 years. And then now that I can prolong my life, I can take on these long stretch projects, right? Even if my physical body deteriorates, if I can keep my cognitive ability, that may be enough to be able to do these things, right? So huge amount. Someone's going to have to secure this stuff, right? Because somebody's going to go, this is not right. You're messing with God's creation. I'm going to hack this stuff. I'm going to teach you. Or someone's going to go, I want to be able to take down a corporation because I can do this and take your stock price to the thing. Think about it. If I was able to hack into one of these things and I can affect all these Teslas and stuff, I could crash that company. It'd be gone.
Yeah. And I think also, not to keep talking about Tesla so much, but I have a Tesla point. There's two things you said there. One, having the robot drive a car. Not the figure. Tesla's robot, per Elon, it can drive. It can drive a car. So that's the first thing. Like that's here, you know. And then the second part, in terms of data that these companies are collecting, also with the Tesla robots, you're able to use the Neuralink, which enables you to command the robot just like through what you're thinking. That's like the simplest way to explain it.
So what my wife does to me. Okay.
Yeah, just like that.
That technology is already here.
And I would say like that technology, this is the interesting part, because also to your point, that technology already existed. It initially was used in what we would probably consider to be more beneficial use cases, when you have individuals who are unable to physically function. You know, that it's there to help them communicate with the world. But you take what is presumably good, and now you use it for a use case of controlling a robot to be able to do things just with your own thoughts. How long until someone presents the use case of use it to go do something to someone? And then at that point, it becomes a matter of, well, who's at fault then? Who takes accountability for that? And the thing is, at this point where Tesla's using this technology, it's in its infancy. It's not perfect. You can command it to do simple things, and it will actually be able to act on it just based on like your thoughts. But we've seen how technology advances. I mean, we see how quickly AI advances. Like every week, something new is happening. And so that technology in itself, with using something like a Neuralink, we're only going to see that continue to get better. And then when we start thinking about the bad actors, it's really only a moment until someone finds a not so positive use case for using that technology with robots or any other entity they want to use to pair it up with it. And
because drones started off as recreational, surveillance devices primarily to go to uninhabitable and places that were just not hospitable to us to go, humans to go do. And it's evolved, and it went to a recreation. I'm a big drone flyer, FCC license, did all that stuff, got all my stuff. And I wouldn't actually spend too much time and money getting the actual drone pilot's license that I never used. But now you're starting to see it is dominating the news because of the military application for it. And I'll make sure I will respectful of your time. You can stay as long as you want, but we'll close out a little bit. I'll go back to the three things again. It is, does it solve a problem? Does it make me a lot of money? Or does it make me military dominance or perceived military dominance? Right now, we're seeing a prime example in this world discourse that is giving people military dominance, all the ability to resist traditional military might, right? Now you'll start seeing, and woe be as us if you start seeing robots on the battlefield, because now it lowers the entry point to go to war. Yeah. Because now you're going to say, well, we're not going to lose any citizens. We're going to lose these things. So now it's just a cost factor rather than a moral factor. And hopefully I'm gone by then. I'm going to go do something else, right?
Me too.
I want to do that. But you're starting to see this. And I think that we are ways away from this, but you're seeing part of the advancement with the intelligence and the compute necessary to be able to do this, because AI is going to do this. And once AI gets cheap, all bets are off.
Oh yeah. Once it's yeah.
Once you can do quantum computing, which is one of my side things, once you can do in ROS 2, once you can do quantum computing at room temperature, and Rod, I know we own stock in a lot of these things, I still don't believe it. Once you can do quantum computing at room temperature, all bets are off. Oh yeah. There's nothing you're going to encrypt. I'm going to own your blockchain, your digital ledger, all of that. That's done. And now you're going to have this exponential way to be able to do these things, because, now I've solved the problem that the hardware can't keep up with the software. Now I have hardware that can keep up with the software. It's going to solve problems too. We're going to solve disease. We'll probably solve space travel, right? Being able to map stuff, but that's coming. But in the end, it all comes back. We got to secure this stuff because I don't believe in the integrity of the human race. We're not going to do what we're supposed to do.
No.
We're dumb, and then we're going to blow ourselves up. So. But Miss Gittens, this has probably been one of the most refreshing episodes that we've had. You are always welcome to come back on the show.
Thanks. I had a question for everyone.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I already know Rod's answer, but I'm curious, given the current state of where robots are and knowing that it would come with this like teleoperation mode where someone would need to be able to visually see what's happening in your home, would you actually be okay with bringing a robot in your home today?
I can answer this. I run my house like Battlestar Galactica. Nothing in here.
I've run my house in a manner of the Mormon philosophy. The most advanced thing I have in this house is that ring at the door, and I find myself ducking in there. There is no IoT in my house, none of that stuff. I like being able to preserve my cognitive abilities as long as I can. I remember phone numbers. I turn the lights on. I do all these things. I set the temperature because it grounds me. Now, I'm not averse to technology, but until it makes a very substantial improvement in my life, I will walk up the stairs and turn my light on. I remember this. This caused a controversy. You're too young for this, Ms. Gittens. There were people that are saying, this is the end of the world. Clap on, clap off with your lights.
Yes. I was here for clap on the commercial.
People thought that was the end of the world. You're going to clap on, it's going to electrocute you.
Oh, no. Yes.
So Rod would have a robot.
Roger would.
I would absolutely today. I grew up a sci-fi fan. I grew up believing that, the human expectation is watching Star Trek and we were going to have all of these things eventually. And as I grew up, I saw a lot of these things appear, like, the cell phone, and still waiting for the transporter.
Yeah.
But still, I have been expecting robots for a long time. I'm just like, why aren't we there yet? Oh my goodness, what is stopping us?
Never get me in a transporter. Forget that. Never going in a transporter. Forget that.
Come out as a
fly.
fly.
That damn transporter. I'm not flying. You get in that transporter.
Now I would have a robot, but my 17-year-old would move out. She's threatened to do that if I brought one into the house already. So,
and I've seen one.
Well,
a little scary robot dog that has a big face that sort of looks at you with his eyes.
Hey, Rod, did you say you promise you'll move out if I bring in a robot?
No, my daughter said she would move out.
I know. Did you tell her? Do you promise that you'll move out if I bring in a robot?
I get it. No, she's our last. She's our baby. I'm gonna be empty nester soon. That's gonna suck.
Yeah. I will say, surprisingly, despite everything I know about the technology, I would 1000% bring one home. In our house, I'm the technical one. If you can talk to it, we have it installed in here. If it can automatically do something, we have it installed. And I see a world where if I brought one in, even knowing that there's some random dude somewhere that has to like take control of it every so often, I would be the type to sit on the couch with the robot and just chat with the people, because I'm very much like, I just love the idea of having this technology there physically with you that can actually move and do stuff in your environment. Now, my husband, on the other hand, no. It took a lot just to get the Echo Dot in the home, and now we have them in almost every room.
I had a robot.
But,
that robot.
I would accept it.
We have what's her face in every room. She controls our lights. She controls the temperature.
Yep.
We've been doing the automation for a long time. I have actually recently started switching. Let me tell you another story. We recently started switching to the Google stuff just because certain reasons. However, when Amazon rolled out the Plus version of what's her face, I can't say her name or she'd answer. I hear my wife in the bathroom in the mornings actually having a conversation with the Plus version because it's that good.
Yeah. Hey,
It's
it's
I'm listening at the door. I'm going, who is she talking to on the phone? And then I realized
in my house would try to escape. I would sit at the front door like, where do you think you're going? Get back in here. I'm scared. Robots don't have feelings. Sit down. Yeah,
Oh,
be that
no.
teleworker. Like, get out there, girl. You're in danger.
Oh,
You got to get a
no.
reference to the movie.
Yes.
You in
Yeah,
danger, girl.
I would love it. I am one of those people, when I heard that you can start to purchase them or just like go on a payment plan, I deeply looked into it because I was like, how do I convince my husband that
Rob, should I buy
this
one?
is a good idea?
buy both of us one. Buy both of us one. I tell you what, we'll go shopping in Bellevue this next week and we'll look for robots.
We'll look for robots. We got to go out and get a drone anyway. Let's go ahead and buy a robot.
Okay, we'll just do it. We'll have it. Yeah.
Long as I buy my wife a new Chanel 25 bag or whatever else, she said, you buy whatever else you go get a robot. You like your damn toys. You know, it's cheaper than a car. You know,
It is cheaper than a car.
I'm just going through a midlife crisis. I need a robot. You know, so we'll do that. Miss Gittens, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Everyone, this is a good show that it's very much gives you something to think about. It gives you something to maybe choose a different podcast to understand that while this seems far-fetched, it's closer than you think. It really is. And, you know, all the things that you're doing now is building upon what we're eventually going to get to, because you may not see it as necessary. However, some type of non-biological, you know, unit that resembles us is going to be necessary with the way that the climate's changing, the way that we're having to go deeper for resources. Unfortunately, the way that we secure our borders and wage warfare, you know, there's always good and bad. But please listen to the show. I think that this was a very good big brain show that we had. And then if you have any comments about it, to talk about, hey, you know, here's some of the nuances I have with it. You know, make it technical as you can, but if it's moral, we'll listen to it. You know, we'll go with that. Ms. Gittens, thank you so much. See everyone. This is the Security and AI show, and we'll see you. Yeah, and robots. People would love to be on the show with either Vasco or any of them. All our we generally do Women in Cyber Month, and a lot of the women that come on, they're huge. We have most of our women that come on the show. Most of the women that come on this show are huge science fiction fans. They all are science fiction fans, so they come on the show. And that's that big brain, right? Everybody, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Rod and I will be in Redmond. Come up. If you know us, we'll buy you a coffee. And we'll do that. Thank you, Frank, for coming on.
Well, you can meet our robot.
Frank will buy you Chick-fil-A waffle fries.
Ooh, I eat that.
He loves Chick-fil-A waffle fries. He'll do anything. You think you do something for a Klondike bar, he'll do anything for a Chick-fil-A fry. He'll do it.
Now you know what his kitchen looks like.
I mean, now you know we do that.
I don't actually do that. I get pup cups now for my dog. Don't get the waffle fries.
Don't get the waffle fries. All right. See you guys later. Mm-hmm.